Okay, for this next part of the process, we're going to go on and make our plate, which the fan itself will be mounted to. This will be also where we're going to cut our circle out for our fan actually to sit inside of. So again, things you're going to need, of course, you need your measuring tape. You have a wonderful T-square there. And of course we need something to mark our lines with and to make them. So let's get started marking and measuring. Alright, so if you notice, I've used my T-square. I've got my lines drawn rather nicely. Personally, I'm giving my box a little, or my plate a little bit of overlap to make sure I have enough to fully and thoroughly secure. If you notice, these brackets that are going to be attached to the fan have a longer side, so you can put 2 screws in them into the wood, and then of course one that will go into the housing. Alright, so to give you, I guess, an example of how that's going to look. Alright, let's go on and throw that on there. So if you notice again, alright, you want to give yourself room, of course, from the edges. Alright, I haven't secured anything, haven't centered and all that stuff, but just showing you again. Keep in mind, all this wood that's on the inside of this fan's housing is going to be gone. So you're going to want as much wood as possible to, of course, give you some kind of security and stability when this fan is going to be turning at 1050 RPMs. So, again, I'm giving mine a little bit overlap just to help with security, stability. Alright, but you can do as you choose. Few points before you cut. You definitely want to make sure, first I'm going to be doing this longer line. Alright, if you have a circular saw, use a circular saw. It tends to make a straighter line. However, I just like a jigsaw. That's just my little preference. Anyway, I want to show you something. Make sure that you give room enough so that whatever you're cutting on does not get cut through. You notice I got a good distance, okay, between there. Alright, so let's get started cutting. Okay, so they may have certain recommendations for how they want this to be done, but for my personal application, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to cut these little corners off. So I've used the 45-degree angle part of my T-square, alright, to go on and adjust for the roof, the slant of the roof. Okay, and what that's going to do is just be pretty much basically up against it. But before I commit to any cuts, you always want to double check. So at this point, I'm going to go on and take my fan. I'm actually going to line it up as best I can. Alright, and double check and see exactly how this is going to look. So I'm going to take a look. Alright. Alright, we got about 2 1/4 on this side. Double check this side. Okay. And here on this one, we've got 1 and 5/8. So I'm gonna pull it over here a little bit, and we're gonna adjust to get in the middle. Alright, so for my particular application, I noticed that with the slant of the roof and the position that it's in right in that corner, alright, I'm actually going to need to cut the corners off. So what I've done is I've used the angled side of my T-square, alright, the 45, alright, and used that, alright, and made these lines on both sides. And now what I'm doing is I'm actually putting the fan on my mounting plate, in a matter of speaking. I'm going to go on and see exactly how this is going to look with the dimensions as I have them. So, if you'll notice, you're going to want to make sure that you line things up. Alright, and as I thought about it, that's why I didn't make that cut, as you can see. Alright, you always want to double check and triple check and quadruple check, okay, to make sure things are going to be as right as possible. Okay, whenever you're creating something, mistakes are going to be made, but you want to avoid as many of those as possible. So if you notice, I can go on and see that I can scoot it up just a hair. Alright, that way that's on. This one's all the way on. And our final one. Alright, now notice it's sticking off. Notice over here we have room. So I'm going to rotate, actually, starting on this side, using this one as a pivot point, in a matter of speaking. Okay, so it's got this one hanging off a hair. We got this one to where it's just hanging off just slightly, which is alright considering where we came from. Okay, that one's off by, again, a hair. And this one is on plenty. Alright, so again, now that I've taken a look at that, that seems pretty good. Alright, now it would be wise to measure the distance between these two marks of cutting off with the top of my particular addict's triangular, alright, gable vent. So I'm going to take a measure from here to this one over here and see, once I make that cut, where is that going to put the apex of that triangle? Because I want that triangle basically to be centered on this circle as best I can, or rather the circular fan to be centered on that triangle as best I can. So that makes sure that we get that optimal airflow. Okay, as I was up there measuring, well, first of all, when I was down here measuring the distance from the A point to this point over here, it's 25.5. Then I went upstairs, rather into the attic, and I double checked the distance from one part of the roof to the other is actually 29. So we got plenty of leeway in there, but I'm still going to cut that off just for room's sake. Alright, now that you've confirmed that whatever customizations that you made to your mounting plate are good and do fit and are valid, now you can go on and center your fan on your plate. I'm going to personally do this by, I'm going to measure the width of it, going to measure the height of it, mark my two midpoints, try my best to line it up with that point right there, which of course is the center of the fan. So let's do that now. Alright, this particular length of wood that I'm using is 33. Okay, like I said, I did want some overlap on my studs, and I'm definitely going to have that. So, of course, half of 33 being 16.5, let's go on and make our mark. Once you make that your horizontal, try your best to put it vertically in the center point as well, because of course when you measure the next way, which is this way, alright, you're going to have to repeat that same process. Alright, so if you notice, we're working with 19 here, and half of 19, it's going to mark it down. If you measure somewhat correctly, you should be pretty good. When you draw your two marks, they should intersect, forming a nice cross. Alright, and now go on, try to, as I said, line your housing up so that it matches. Okay, and this center point is right over that cross as best you can. Keep in mind though, make sure your lines, not that it matters, alright, but these lines or slits where they cut, alright, are going out of the diagonals. Okay, also another thing to think about, your wiring box, you want it pointing down. We're going to rotate this all the way around. Alright, so it's like so. Remember, this is going to be on your roof. Again, you want this pointing down. Just depending on my wiring is going down. But if your box is up, then hey, that's what you got to do. And now we're ready to go on and trace the outline so we can get to drilling and then cutting our circle for a housing to fit down into. Get around from it down this way, having it centered. It looks about center. And rotating it around, looking at it again so that this is about center. And looking at it this way, again, I think we're pretty good. So, now that that's the case, let's again double check. That's the key to everything, folks. Double checking, double checking, double checking. Alright, got our L bracket over here. Lines up with our slit just fine. Isn't off. Let's take it over here. Alright. Lined up again. Is not off. Alright. Take it over to this side. I'm going to see this one's going to be off, so we're going to have to rotate it around a little bit. Keep in mind and remember, alright, rotating along that point isn't going to uncenter it. Just again rotating things around. Alright. So, this is such. Now, what you're probably going to have to do is find a good medium point between both of those hanging off, since clearly both aren't going to be satisfied. Alright, that little bit ain't going to hurt nothing. And vice versa over here. That little bit ain't going to hurt nothing either. Okay, again, I'm going to switch it on around over here to this side. Alright, notice. Alright, get some light over here. Hey. Got it lined up just fine. And again, lined up, and no problem.